some K-pop idols have changed Korea's laws after their passing, but also during their lifetime. From the bravery of Goo Hara and Sulli to the infamous dating ban, let's go through K-pop idols who shaped Korea's justice system. The Goo Hara Act. Goo Hara had her fair share of problems with the Korean public and their unnecessary hate, but most of her issues came from her ex-boyfriend and even her own family. In fact, it was issues with her family, more specifically her mother, that made Goo Hara's act happen. After struggling with her mental health and traumatic events that only made it worse, Hara was found unconscious at her home on November 19, 2019. But even though she wasn't here anymore, she still wasn't left alone by neither the public nor her mother. Just 4 months after Hara's passing, her older brother, Goo Ho-in, found himself locked in a court battle with her estranged mother, who had reportedly demanded half of Hara's assets for herself. According to Hara's brother, their mother had abandoned him and Hara when they were just 9 and 7. After their mother left, Hara and Ho-in were raised by their grandmother as their father worked in construction sites all over Korea to earn money to support his family. The brother also revealed that when Hara was hospitalized, their father couldn't be present, so Ho-in had to call their mother as Hara's legal guardian. But Hara wasn't a fan of the idea. The brother said, when Hara woke up in the intensive care unit, the first thing she said was, "Why did you call mom here?" Hara could have contacted our mother, but being around our mother was awkward and difficult for her. He even said it hurts even more that the person responsible for Hara's pain was now calling herself her mother. He said, "I'm upset that the person who's the reason that Hara had such a hard time is now claiming to be her real mother when Hara's not even here now. I can't even stand it when the words 'I'm Hara's mom' come out of her mouth." But this story becomes much worse. Even though Goo Hara's mother had been absent for most of her children's lives, she still had the audacity to show up at Hara's funeral and also insisted on being the family's chief mourner. The chief mourner is the one who organizes the whole funeral and who makes offerings of food every morning and evening as if the deceased were still alive. If that wasn't enough, she was also caught recording their conversation at the funeral, looking as if she was collecting them for evidence, but she was caught by Ho-in and was kicked out. Ho-in said, "While talking with our mom during the funeral, I saw flashing from her phone. I asked her if she was recording our conversation and she admitted to it. I was so angry at her that I immediately deleted the recording and kicked her out." And if you think that this couldn't get any more messed up, she was also seen taking pictures with Hara's celebrity friends while they were mourning her loss. I heard this later on, but the person who asked the celebrities at the funeral for a photo was unfortunately our mother. This wasn't the end of it though. Since Goo Hara was unmarried, in the case of her passing, her inheritance would be split up equally between her parents. Because of this, Hara's mother expressed her desire to reclaim her parental rights at the funeral following the passing of Goo Hara, which made the brother file a lawsuit against her in order to keep her from taking half of Goo Hara's assets. According to the brother, Goo Hara's mother demanded half of her inheritance as soon as Goo Hara's coffin was carried out of the house. He said, "Right after my sister's coffin was carried out of the house, my mother's lawyers came to demand half of Goo Hara's real estate assets. I can never forgive her for employing lawyers in that situation. After she abandoned us as children, she got lawyers as soon as my sister passed away. I was at a loss for words." Goo Ho-in and his legal representative No Jong-gon took it a step further and submitted a legislative petition to the National Assembly enacting the Goo Hara Act. The Goo Hara Act was proposed with the purpose of preventing a parent from claiming inheritance if they had neglected their parental duties. The petition managed to gather 100,000 signatures in 17 days and was submitted to the Standing Committee of South Korea for formal review. Celebrities like Wonder Girls' Yeon asked for people to sign the petition in order to gain bigger support. However, it was not approved in the National Assembly the first time. The act, which Ho-in said is his last gift to his sister, was later passed in April of 2021 after further review. That same month, the court ruled that 60% of Hara's inheritance would be given to her father, who gave it to Ho-in, and 40% to her mother instead of the usual 50-50. Though the Goo Hara Act had been passed, it wasn't applied to their case as the ruling for the division of Hara's inheritance was made in 2019. Ho-in intended to use the inheritance to set up a foundation to help single parents and struggling trainees. The public was glad that the act finally passed, but they also had issues that the mother received 40% of Hara's inheritance. A user on Twitter said, "It's a start, but ideally her mother should be getting nothing at all. Hope the Goo Hara Act is passed sooner rather than later to avoid more cases like these." The fans also asked for a longer sentence for Hara's ex-boyfriend, who was jailed for threatening Hara, causing her extreme pain. A fan wrote, "The Goo Hara Act has passed. Another job to do is to make sure her ex gets longer sentence and she gets the justices she deserves." A petition also started, but as of February 2022, nothing has yet been decided. Not only that, but he only served a 1-year sentence and was released in July of 2021. Overall, it's heartwarming to know that at least Hara had someone that would fight for her when Hara's own mother wouldn't leave her to rest in peace even after her passing. I hope she can rest easy after that. The Sulli Law. If Sulli was known for anything in South Korea before her passing, it was for not sticking to general standards of Korean celebrities ways, and that's why she was a constant target for netizens. They were divided on Sulli's image, as some felt that what Sulli was doing was inappropriate. Korean celebrities are always expected to act as proper role models for young kids, and they felt that Sulli had somehow breached this social contract through her public actions. This led them to constantly attack her online. That's why the South Korean government came up with the idea of the so-called Sulli Law, which was supposed to protect people from being attacked on online spaces. It was inspired by Sulli's long-term struggle with haters, and therefore after her tragic passing, she became an inspiration for this law. The Sulli Law was proposed in South Korea's National Assembly in early December of 2019. The bill was reportedly proposed by 9 members of the National Assembly and was supported by 200 celebrities who were friends or colleagues of Sulli or those who have experienced the same things as Sulli. The report also claims that 100 organizations supported the bill. The law was supposed to allow platform providers like Naver and Daum to automatically delete hate comments and block IP addresses. Sulli's image was packaged as the childish, innocent baby of SM ever since her debut. This is why people always treated her like a little girl. Debuting that young, and the innocent image SM tried to push on her didn't help her in the slightest. Whenever Sulli would do something that didn't match this perfect image, netizens would write the most disgusting hate comments. So Sulli became the target of unwarranted online hate. While we all know that this kind of behavior is not unusual for Korean netizens, it was really on a whole new level in this case. She got hate comments for everything she did: her relationship with Choi-ja, her clothes, and even her Instagram posts. In 2017, she was heavily criticized for being a part of a movie that included some spicy scenes, while her co-star Kim Soo-hyun was pitied for starring in the movie alongside her. I know, it's crazy. Her support for the No Bra movement in 2019 was met with extreme backlash as well. Not surprisingly, according to her manager, she was severely depressed at the time of her passing. Sulli passed away on October 14th, 2019, and while South Korea was grieving her passing, the tragic event also started some important conversations about online hate. Most importantly, there were conversations about what could be done to stop it from happening. One day after the tragic news, petitions were seen online through Korea's national petition website. The description of the petition stated this: "We demand severe punishment to those who left hate comments that ultimately led to Sulli's passing. Others, like Jonghyun, have suffered from these hate comments which resulted in horrible decisions. If the law isn't changed, more events like this may happen. Please revise the law so that those who leave hate comments may receive severe punishment." Another petition was started in hopes of changing the law so that all internet users' real names would be revealed. However, this idea was scrapped since it was a breach of privacy and could be misused by wealthy public figures to silence and target victims who want to expose them for their wrongdoings. But the fight to bring justice to Sulli and all the other people who suffered didn't stop. So, in response to the social outrage, the Sulli Law was proposed as a prevention measure to these comments. Unfortunately, the law was never passed. The Sulli Law wasn't able to get approved at the 20th National Assembly, and E-Daily states that it got scrapped eventually. The outlet quotes a source in the political sphere as saying, "In order for the Sulli Act to pass, it needs to be proposed again to the 21st National Assembly and pass through the full session. However, there's currently no assembly member that will propose a bill about that, and interest in it has really dropped as well." The news was met with disappointment. An online user said, "So instead of finding a solution, you just provide back the space for them to continue their hate so it won't be shifted to social media?" They continued, "When people's lives become an interest, this is where the real issue lies. It's genuinely sad that the Sulli Law looked like an attempt from the government to shut people up rather than actually finding a solution to the problem." Yoo Sung-jun Prevention Act. Now, Steve Yoo is still alive, but his actions caused such a big controversy in Korea that the law simply had to be changed. Steve Yoo debuted as a singer in 1997 in South Korea. His first album, West Side, managed to sell 1 million copies, and the success continued even with his other albums and songs. Then the time for his enlistment got nearer and nearer. Steve had repeatedly stated on television that he would fulfill his mandatory military service, but in 2002, just before he was about to be drafted, he became a naturalized US citizen. We are all aware that all South Korean men must serve in the military for about 2 years, and draft dodging is a sensitive issue in South Korea, which can even affect the fate of government officials, celebrities, and other public figures. That's why Steve's decision sparked a public outroar, and because he became a US citizen right before his enlistment, the South Korean government considered it an act of desertion and deported him, plus at the same time they permanently banned him from entering the country. And with the rising number of Korean citizens renouncing their citizenship to avoid mandatory military service, the Military Manpower Administration introduced the Steve Yoo Law in 2016 to stop the trend of Korean men changing their citizenship. The act stated that Korean males can't renounce citizenship from ages 18 to 37 to avoid military service. People who renounce Korean citizenship to avoid military service also become legally disadvantaged when it comes to job opportunities and starting a business. But while working as an actor in China, Steve Yoo unsuccessfully actually tried several times to have the entry ban lifted. He turned to legal action against the South Korean Consulate General in Los Angeles to fight his case in the Seoul Administrative Court in 2016 and last year, but he lost both times. They excused it by saying that if he returns to South Korea and resumes activities, it will demoralize soldiers who are devoting themselves to serving the country. The case is still ongoing and people's opinions are divided on this topic. The BTS Law. The BTS Law has been one of the most discussed laws in South Korea as of lately, and just like the Yoo Sung-jae Prevention Act, it also has to do with the military. As I mentioned before, all able-bodied South Korean men have been required to enlist in the military once they turn 28 or sooner, but there are also exceptions. Top athletes like Olympians or Asian Games medal winners and classical and folk musicians who win certain awards have been excused from military service. The reason for them being exempt is that their achievements are seen as bringing national prestige. In December of 2020, lawmakers introduced a bill for revising the Military Service Act after BTS became the first ever South Korean group to top the United States Billboard Hot 100 singles chart with the song Dynamite. This law says that K-pop entertainers who have received government medals for helping spread the country's cultural influence around the world can apply to have their military service postponed. All 7 members of BTS meet that requirement since they were awarded the Order of Cultural Merit in 2018. If this law is passed in South Korea's National Assembly, BTS members will be allowed to continue promoting as K-pop idols for 34 months instead of serving military services during that time. This had people divided. Some think that the BTS members deserve to have their enlistment postponed because of their worldwide success and their representation of South Korea. Others didn't share the same opinions, as they thought that giving K-pop artists the luxury to postpone their enlistment would be too much. The dating ban. Now, this isn't exactly a law, but it has been thought to make the companies become stricter with dating. This is connected to Kim Sung-jae's passing and the story behind it. Sung-jae was a very famous idol in the 90s since he formed the Deuce team with fellow idol Lee-hyun in 1993. But when they were at their peak, they parted ways to focus on their solo careers. Sung-jae eventually made his solo debut as I Told You, and his debut was very successful. He was praised for his talents and his future already looked promising, but things turned dark very fast. Right after his debut stage, he spent the night at a hotel with his backup dancers and his girlfriend. But on the very next day of his debut stage, he was found unconscious with 28 needle marks in his right arm. The cause of his passing was teletamine zolazepam, which was found in animal stimulants. First, it was thought that he took his own life, but that didn't make sense to law enforcement. He had good relationships with his family and friends, and he just had his debut stage. He was also making long-term plans when it came to his career, so this possibility was more or less off the table. Plus, Sung-jae was right-handed, and the injection marks were in his right arm. If he injected himself, the needle marks would have been in his left arm. So, after the police did some digging, Sung-jae's girlfriend at the time became the prime suspect in the case. She was reportedly very jealous and possessive of Sung-jae. She allegedly used to fight other fans at concerts for getting too close to him without her permission and had been restricting Sung-jae. It was reported that she even tied him up in her bed to prevent him from going to a meeting. She was also proven to have been together with Sung-jae the night before he passed away. At that time, there was also a witness who stated that she bought animal sedatives at the pharmacy. She was sentenced to life in prison, but later escaped the clutches of the law because of the help of her wealthy and influential family. To date, no perpetrators have been convicted of this case. Due to this tragic event, it's said that the entertainment company started putting dating bans on their idols to prevent them from dating. And while there was nothing proven about this theory, it's highly possible because it's been often mentioned that the dating ban was put into action because of Sung-jae's case. The JYJ Law. If we have to thank anyone for artists not being blacklisted by entertainment companies or for idols not being victims of terrible contracts, it's JYJ. So I'm going to be discussing the 2 times JYJ had an impact over how idols are treated by companies and broadcasting agencies and how they completely changed K-pop. Between 2009 and 2015, 4 SM artists ended up suing the company, 3 of them because of the contracts, but none of them had the impact that JYJ's lawsuit had. On July 31st of 2009, Jae-chung, Junsu, and Yoo-chun, who were members of Dongbang Shingi at the time, filed a lawsuit against SM Entertainment seeking annulment of their unfair contracts. So why did the members think their contracts were unfair? According to them, their 13-year contracts were too much, and the 3 felt that SM Entertainment were the only ones who were benefiting from the contract terms. They also questioned the legality of it, but SM revealed that according to the law, a contract that binds an artist for over 7 years is completely legal on the condition that the artists are active overseas. Plus, according to SM, the Dongbang Shingi members and their families were the ones that kept insisting on a 13-year contract, not the company. On the other hand, JYJ said that they were coerced into the contract and that they had no other choice but to keep silent. In the following months, the 5 members of Dongbang Shingi finished up their Japanese activities after the Seoul Central District Court granted JYJ's ruling to suspend their contracts, and the group split. This ruling really brought attention to the inhumane contracts the idols signed to start their careers, and also paved the way for contracts to be much shorter for other idols. Junsu, Jaejung, and Yoo-chun debuted as JYJ in 2010, but their debut and rebranding didn't go well for them, and it was all SM's fault. On April 13th, JYJ's Junsu took part in the recording for EBS's music program Space Sympathy. This was his first music show appearance on Korean television in 6 years due to contract conflicts with SM that I mentioned before, which resulted in an essential ban from appearing on television in Korea. So basically, all of JYJ's public appearances were terminated from broadcasting stations due to SM's influence in the Korean industry. The trio didn't give up, and they still tried to release music and promote it with the fans' help. So, in order to prevent something like this from happening again, the JYJ Law was proposed to prevent broadcasting companies from blacklisting idols without proper reasoning. On April 14th, Assemblywoman Choi Min-hee submitted a bill to make amendments to broadcasting regulations. The law failed to pass in June of 2015, but eventually got passed by the National Assembly in December of the same year. The irony of this whole thing is that JYJ continued to be silently blacklisted even after this law was put into effect. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye!